Okay, the next thing I did to do my own search, again, the sexuality aspect of women and the clitoris and what, I read this book. It's called Recapture the Capture, Rethinking God, Sex, and Death in a World That Has Lost Its Mind. I read that, and I also read this book. It's called The Heart and Soul of Sex by Odgin. So I read quite a few books. I bought some. I went to the library. I researched some because I wanted to see how the survivors, how can we improve our own sexual pleasure. So I read all that and I incorporated that in the book that I wrote, that I'm writing actually. So what I've done right now is I took except on that very chapter where I dealt with the sexuality in the book. So I'm going to have that. I'm going to present that to you here. It's not published yet. This is just my raw draft, but I thought it would be a good place for us to start a conversation on how we move forward. Uh, Sister,
Yes.
do you want to do the reading or because I also recorded it? So, sister, I'm going to start with introduction. In this story, what happened is Candice in the other book, at the end of The Greatest Hijack, the guy asked her to marry him, and she did. And that night, he did not, let me minimize it a bit, let me explain the background. That night, the husband did not have sex with her. So, and the next day, they in the village, the husband did not have sex with her. So the next day, they went to Lagos. When they got to Lagos, they met a woman, a younger woman, who is not circumcised in his house. So Candice got upset, got in the plane, and went back to America. So in her thinking, she's thinking because she's circumcised, that's why the husband did not have sex with her the day before. So all that anger and all that. So now she's at the therapist trying to find out, whether it's her circumcision, why it's because of maybe what the man believed. Remember when I told you when I went to that meeting, what the guy said, that circumcised women shouldn't that you shouldn't sleep with them. So she's thinking because she's circumcised, that's why the husband did not. So she really wants to find out that belief, because we're talking of modern age men are still. I talk to a lot of men and they still have that belief in them. So now this is a conversation between Candice and the therapist to debunk whether it's really what could make her not be sexually acceptable to a man. So I will go ahead and share that screen again and bring it up again.
Have a seat. I presume you've glanced through it, that you've glanced through the book.
Yes. Oh, no, that doesn't do justice to the author's work. As you can see, I have notes written on the edges. I read the book cover to cover.
What do you think?
I'm trying to succinctly put my words together. Apart from having babies, I've always wondered what real sex is all about. Gina Alden, the author, answered my question by integrating sexuality with spirituality. The women she interviewed for her research expressed that sex is more than genital intercourse and orgasm, and I agree with them.
What does sex mean to you?
I believe it is more than joining of two people at the pelvic region. It is also the joining of heart and soul.
Has that been your experience? You don't have to answer if that you are uncomfortable.
I came
You
here
don't
to find
have to answer that if you're uncomfortable.
Yes, I came here to find answers. It's important that I share my own experience.
Okay. Let's start with how you were introduced to sexual intercourse.
When I was 12 years old, I overheard my grandmother talking with a woman who had just married. She complained to my grandmother that at night, when her husband put his penis into her, it was very painful. My grandmother told her it was normal for a new bride to feel that way, that the pain will reduce when she starts having children. The woman expressed that she didn't want her husband to do it anymore. My grandmother kind of laughed it off, saying it was the only way she would have children and that the pain would prepare a woman for childbirth.
What did you make of that conversation?
Whatever the woman was talking about was painful, and she has to endure the pain if she wants to have children.
You were able to relate the conversation to having children?
Yes, and that the painful thing happens at night.
Any other experience?
My next exposure to sex was a year later when I went to visit my aunt in the city. A girl about my age lived next door with her older sister and family. One morning, I heard her scream as if she was on fire. Naturally, I ran out to find out what happened to her. When I got to the scene, the girl was naked, her back was on the floor with her legs spread apart. She had a death grip of her vagina. Her sister had sprayed pepper on her vagina. The girl begged for mercy, but the sister kept hitting her. I was horrified and started crying too. My aunt pulled me back inside her flat. She explained to me that the girl got pregnant by visiting some man in the building instead of going to school. I was told never to open my legs for any man or something similar to what happened to the girl would happen to me.
How did you feel?
Terrified. I didn't want to experience what I saw. The thought of pepper in my vagina alone made me want to cry. After that, I ran if I came within 2 feet of a man.
Did anyone or school offer sex education to you?
No, I picked up most of what I know from the streets.
As a child, were you hugged, kissed, or cuddled by your parents?
Never.
Growing up, did you observe the adult around you hug, kiss, or cuddle?
No, but I saw that on television and movies, and I read a lot of romance books in secondary school.
How did you navigate your relationship when you grew older?
When I got married, I was told to lay down with my husband. He will come inside me and we will have children.
How old were you?
23. Going into the marriage, I already knew sex would happen. It would be painful, and I was to endure, which is exactly what happened.
Oh. Did he attempt to make it less painful?
We didn't talk about it. We were young. In hindsight, we were both ignorant of what good or bad sex. Anyway, he got scholarship to study in America and left 6 months later. There was no pregnancy, which troubled our families, but I was glad to be spared the painful intercourse. I joined him 3 years later.
Was there a difference?
Somewhat. The pain wasn't as it used to be. America seemed to have softened him. He was patient and gentle. Our daughter came 2 years later.
What was your view of sex at that point?
It was part of my marital obligation. I let him do whatever he wanted with me, and that was that.
Did you ever feel a desire to initiate it?
No.
Can you explain why?
Candice, there was no pleasure. I'd sometimes pray he'd forget I was in the room.
I want to interject with I want to interject your mutilation into our conversation. At what age did it happen?
I was 10.
Do you remember the experience?
Yes, it was extremely painful.
Looking at my notes, between age 10 and 13, you experienced a cut in your vulva and witnessed someone else vulva sprayed with a pepper. How do you think these experiences shape your view of sex?
As a young woman, I kind of disconnected that part of my body. It helped me to bury the painful experience somewhere in my brain.
You know, all parts of your body are connected.
Yes, if one part is numb, there's a possibility that other parts will be numb too.
Okay. How do you how do you think the summation of all your earlier experience affected your sex life?
Negative responses. My sex life was shaped by my
I don't go
society's
look for you.
mindset, my mutilation, and the
Anima,
assault I witnessed.
I don't go look for you. Come join this conversation.
Could you mute? If you ask survivors like me, they probably have similar history. This could explain why we have been classified as cold or sexually passive.
And also, you weren't offered another perspective to give you a balanced view. The adults didn't model the enduring aspect of relationship like hugging and kissing.
Yes, where was I supposed to learn?
Kind of. Precisely. How about in your later life? Did your experience of sex change?
Candice thought about her sexual experience with Sahar, Kirsten, and then recently with Babsa. There are definitely differences. She said, yes, I found out that my partner played an important role in how I responded.
Care to explain that?
I've been with 3 men in my life. I had a 15-year marriage, a one-night stand in Madrid, and a 24-hour marriage with no sexual intercourse. My experience with all three were diverse.
I bet they were.
With my ex-husband, sex was perfunctory. He'd come into the bedroom and say, how far? Any show tonight? If I was up to it, I took off my clothes. He did what he had to do. We turned our backs and off to sleep. The perfunctory sex came to a halt when he became verbally abusive. His way of dealing with anger was to spew offensive words at me to debase me. He'd want to sleep with me afterwards. My response was no. I was adamant, telling him, you cannot eat your vomit. We eventually went our separate ways. Candice had a sip of water from the glass she offered by the therapist. A few years ago, I spent a night with my boss in Madrid. He was troubled that I didn't enjoy his lovemaking. I confessed to him that I had undergone genital mutilation. First time I ever voiced that incident to anyone. He took it as a personal challenge to make sure sex was pleasurable for me. He ran out of the hotel room, went into the city, and came back with 2 things, a lubricant and a clitoral stimulator. Both products enhanced my sexual stimulation, and I experienced orgasm for the first time. She stopped speaking.
Take your time, Doris, but not softly.
My experience with Babsa in my 24 hours marriage completely blew me out of my mind. In the morning of our wedding day, I'll quote what he said to me. You are my resting place, my baby for life. In his eyes, I saw a beautiful glaze like surface of water in a gentle stream. I was drawn to him. At that moment, I felt warmth radiate throughout my body. My vagina filled up as if he stroked me with his fingers. I wanted to have sex with him right there, and I shamelessly told him so. It didn't happen because he was a better control of himself than I was. We were on a roof. The environment wasn't conducive for sex. Thinking about the night of the wedding, Candy smiled to herself. Later, after the wedding, in his bedroom, I knew what it felt like to lay myself bare to a man. We laughed a lot, talking about different things. I was tickled when we talked about an incident that happened when we were 13 years old. I told him I had seen him naked from where I hid myself. His response was, had he uncovered my secret hideout, he'd have walked me to my house and asked to marry me. I reminded him that we were only 13. His reply was, we would have had 20 children by now. I felt my pelvic region open up. My womb, my vaginal walls and vulva expanded, wanting him to come in and start pumping. The guy didn't touch me, and I was wet between my legs. I was scared.
Why?
I've never experienced that kind of effortless stimulation. The passion was so strong. My entire pelvic region acting independently, wanting to mate was a new experience. I actually feared that if we had sex, I might become pregnant. I'm postmenopausal. What a scary thought. I was relieved when he said all he wanted to do that night was hold me. I held him while squeezing my vagina to stop it from quivering.
Did you say your pelvic region acted independently?
Yes, that part was out of control. I was begging him to come for a swim.
Well, very loud. The brain is the powerhouse of all our actions. Sexual stimulation is no different. Our sexual response depends on the message sent to the brain. The brain engages several organs that increase blood flow to the pelvic area and nudges us to copulate. It's the way nature organizes our body in preparation for procreation.
Are you saying my mutilation doesn't count?
It may to a certain degree. Our body is very complex. A lot of things come into play. You said you shamelessly told Babza you wanted him.
Yes,
Right there, you crossed a barrier. You trusted him enough to express your desire. No fear of recrimination, no rejection.
true.
Last time we spoke, you indicated that your RID was when he called you a prince. You connected with him spiritually. Is it correct to say you experienced a joining apart from sexual penetration?
Correct.
You said he didn't marry another girl because of her mutilation. Yet, he proposed to you and you accepted. That's a sign that you felt safe with him.
Correct.
In Madrid, you allow your boss to use sex enhancement products with you.
Yes.
That shows you overcame your sexual norm, your social norm, which accepted painful intercourse as normal. You were willing to try something new to get a different result.
Correct.
You certainly haven't you certainly haven't told me you are ashamed of your body.
No, I'm not. Babsa told me I don't even look my age.
He should know he married you.
I keep physically fit. I walking, swimming, and dancing. A friend in my Zumba dance class taught me some body movement that loosens a woman's pelvic region to get rid of any stiffness.
Let me guess. Sexual exercise.
Yeah, with sexy romantic music. I'm yet to practice them though.
Don't worry. I'm sure you'll find the right opportunity.
I also attend a health and wellness yoga class. The instructor always starts the class by telling us to detox by expelling all negative energy from within. We reach into our core to identify our past hurt, pain, and displeasure. We gather them, and through exhalation, we let them out, imagining the wind taking them into the depth of the ocean, never to return. Then we bring in positive energy through inhalation, taking in crispy oxygenated air and letting it wash through our body for healing. She walks us to a place of serenity. Inside, we find copious amount of kindness and love. We fill ourselves with it and let it radiate from inside out and out to share with others. We learn that life is beautiful where there's exchange of love. While in this journey of renewal, the instructor also shows us different body stretches. You feel light by the end of the class.
Sounds very interesting. To round up our session today, I said you are on your way to having great sex.
Thank you. I have to remember that sexual fulfillment involves love, acceptance, honesty, laughter, safety, communication, and letting go of inhibitions. My partner and I are one in this. Candy stood up to leave.
At the Dodorico, you can call to make your next appointment.
Inspired, Candice left the office with renewed energy.
Hmm, that's good.
Well, okay, comments.
So comments on the floor. Um,
Everybody.
the bottom line of, if I may summarize it briefly, is that mutilation doesn't really prevent sexual enjoyment. That it depends on your relationship with the man, how you look at each other, how you love each other and cherish each other. Because the second, from your two examples, the last two examples, there was no sexual intercourse, yet you had pleasure.
Mhm,
You enjoyed the relationship. So,
mhm.
which boils down to say, female circumcision may or may not impair pleasure totally,
Mhm.
but maybe for some, to a certain extent. But there are different ways of enjoying sex. There are different ways. The bottom line is it depends on the relationship between man and woman. That is what I got from the whole conversation.
You're absolutely correct. So I'm going to go next to my next video. After that, then we'll kind of open things up for everyone. So I want to get finished with the video aspect. So we kind of like open the door. And